Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Testing Tricks. Today I would like to share few automation testing interview questions for experienced candidates, and these questions are being asked by the interviewers in recent days. So I hope it will be helpful for you guys also. Okay, so let's start the discussion. So first question would be, how can you fetch the data from Excel sheet programmatically? So as you know, using Apache Py library, you can easily achieve this particular part. You can read the data, you can write the data from the Excel file. Okay, so you have to add that dependency in your pom.xml file, and also you will get XSSF, HSSF, those kind of methods. Using those methods, you can easily read and write the data. So the next question is, how do you select multiple options from the drop down? Okay, so that one you can achieve it through select class, also select by visible text, select by index. Using those methods, you can achieve that. Okay. Next question is, which framework you are using currently in your project, and please explain the flow. So if you are using data driven framework, you can explain that flow. If you are using hybrid model, means hybrid framework, that is also you can explain, like just in high level, like what are the page classes you are using, reusable methods you are using, page objects, whatever you are using. If you are reading any data from the config file, that is also you can explain. Okay, just high level you have to explain. Next question is, how do you handle dynamic web elements? Okay. Next question is, which XPath is good to use and why? As you know, there are different XPath you are using in your project, but it is good if you are using ID, because ID is not changing always. It is always unique. So it's better to use ID compared to other XPath. Okay. Next question is, what is null pointer exception? So null pointer exception, if the object is not initialized properly, then you'll get this kind of exceptions. Suppose in your framework you are using page class, test class, and base class. So now if your test class is extending the base class, where you have defined all the uh, launch web browser part, or maybe selecting the browser or maximizing the window, everything you have mentioned inside the base class, right? But from the test class, where you are writing the test cases, so from the test class, when you're extending the base class, in that particular base class, if you are missing the web driver initialization part, then obviously you'll get the null pointer exception. That means if object is not initialized properly, or object is pointing to the null values, or the value is not mentioned properly with that particular object, then that time we'll get this null pointer exception. Okay, so in layman language, if object is not initialized properly, then that time we'll get this null pointer exception. Okay. Next question is, what is interface and where do we use it in framework? So as you know, interface is a blueprint of a class, and where you are implementing the implementations you are uh, writing inside a class itself, right? That is the meaning of the interface. And where do you use it in framework? You can mention that you are using iTest listener. That particular interface you are using, because of this interface you are able to pass the test case, means you are able to notify the test case result, whether it is success or failure, right? So on test success or on test failure, this kind of implementations you are able to achieve it using iTest listener. So this iTest listener is nothing but an interface. So that one you can explain that this using iTest listener, that is the one of the interface which we are using in our framework. Okay, so the next question is the difference between POM and page factory design pattern. The main core difference is here, in page factory design pattern, the code you are writing relatively less compared to page object model. That is the main difference. Okay, next question is difference between method overloading and method overriding with examples. So method overloading means what? Inside a same class, you are using multiple methods which have the same name but different parameters. That is the meaning of method overloading. And method overriding means there are two different class, but methods and parameters all are same, but it is happening within the subclass and superclass. That is the meaning of method overriding. That means in case of overloading, we're using the same method name but inside a same class, but parameters are different. But in method overriding, method name is same, return type is also same, parameters is also same, but it is happening within two different class. Means one is superclass and another is subclass. That is the difference. Okay. Next question is, write a Java program to find the second largest element in an array. So you can easily Google it and you can find out this kind of answer. Okay, or program. Difference between find element and find elements in Selenium. You know that find element is always returning single web element, but find elements will return the list of web elements. Next question is, have you ever done cross browser testing and how do you do that? If you have done, then you have to explain in your interview. Okay, so just go through like how we have achieved cross browser testing. Okay, so the next question is, have you created framework from scratch? So this question is asking because just want to understand like, is there any existing framework where you guys uh, are writing the test cases or implementing the new automation test cases, or you guys are well enough to build any framework like data driven or hybrid? So that is why they're asking these kind of questions. Just they want to understand like, is there any uh, unified framework is already in place in your company, or you guys are implementing own. So in that way they can understand like how flexible you are by creating this kind of framework, or how expertise you have in the framework designing part. So because of that they're asking these kind of questions. Okay, so be prepared for this. Next question is, different type of exceptions which you have faced in automation testing. So as you know, there are different exceptions like stale element exception, no such element exception, timeout exception, even null pointer exception. So these kind of exceptions we are generally facing in our automation testing. So you can mention these kind of exceptions. Now next question is, can you please explain the folder structure in your automation framework? So that's what, like if you are using hybrid framework, then you have to mention that you are using page class, test class, then reusable method suits you are using, and you're like copying some of the suppose you are fetching the data from the config file. For that there is a different folder structure. Okay, so in this way you can explain. There is a separate base class where we are mentioning all the like launching the browser, maximizing the window, selecting the browser, which browser you want to execute the automation. For that you are mentioning like, suppose you are using some before class, before method, after class, after test, before test, those kind of annotations you are using in the base class. So this kind of like high level folder structure you have to explain. Okay, so the next question is, what is test ng and how do you prioritize the methods? Okay, so test ng is also, it is one kind of framework where you can prioritize your test cases. Suppose if you want to go with priority 0, priority 1, priority 2, those kind of test cases, if you want to segregate that one also, you can achieve it. Okay, so the next question is, difference between get text and get attribute. Many people are confused by giving this answer. Okay, so get text means you're fetching the values, means inner text of that particular web element. So you are fetching visible inner text of an web element. That is the meaning of get text. Okay, and get attribute means fetching the value of a specific HTML attribute, not the inner text. So in get text you are fetching the visible inner text, but in get attribute you are fetching the value of specific HTML attribute. That is the difference. Okay, next question is, how do you decide which test cases to automate? Obviously the test cases which are taking a long time to execute manually, or the test cases which are very complex, or the test cases which are very much time consuming. So those kind of test cases you are considering in automation. Next question is how do you handle multiple frames? Next question is what is data provider? Data provider is mainly used for data driven testing. Suppose in your login page there is a username and password, but you want to test it using different kind of combinations, different username, different password, like one valid, one invalid, another is both are valid, third scenario is both are invalid. So this kind of scenarios if you want to try using multiple inputs, so then that time you can use data provider concept. Okay, so and this is also we can achieve through, means we can achieve data driven testing using this data provider. So that is why we're using data provider concept here. Next question is how do you trigger test cases automatically? So obviously whenever you are implementing any automation test cases, you have to trigger it, you have to execute it, right? So in your from your laptop you cannot do that. Then that time you have to wait for the execution uh, this execution will not complete. You have to sit idle. So this is not a good approach. So the one thing is you have to use it that CI/CD pipeline, or through Jenkins you have to trigger your test cases automatically. In the Jenkins you can set up the timing, like tomorrow morning 7 o'clock. Once it will reach that particular timing, your all the sanity test case will execute. Then you know there is a timing, like it will take around 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever it is, like half an hour. Then after that you are giving 10 minutes break. Then after that or after 1 hour you are triggering your regression test cases. So that kind of timing you can set up in Jenkins. So using that you can automatically trigger the test cases and you'll get the report. Okay, how do you handle frequent UI changes? Okay, next question is what would be your automation strategy at the time of release cycle? Because sometimes at the time of release they want to check the health report, like whether all the sanity test cases are passing or regression test cases are passing or not, so that it will give a like kind of confidence that no, our manual testers also executed all the test cases and this is the report, and from the automation side also they've executed sanity and regression suite. Okay, so we all are good, so we are good to go with the release. So that is what they want to understand, what are the strategy you guys are using at the time of release, whether you guys are maintaining separate automation suite or sanity suite or regression suite, how many test cases are there. Okay, whether you guys are uh, like sending the report, status report to the stakeholder before the release. So that is what they want to understand. Okay, so the next question is how many different test suites you are maintaining in automation and why. That is the same question, like if you are using sanity, then how many test cases are you maintaining in the sanity and why you are maintaining the sanity suite. If you have a regression, why you are using regression suite, as you know, once it will go to the next release, suppose from release 1 to release 2 or release 2 to release 3, then we have to check whether the existing functionalities are still working fine or not. So for that we have to use the regression suite. So one or two test cases we can identify from your previous release and you can automate them, so that you can understand, yeah, still the old functionalities and existing functionalities are working fine. So in this way you have to mention to the interviewer that yeah, we are using sanity and regression suits, that is what we are maintaining and this is the purpose. Okay, how do you ensure low maintenance cost of automation script? That is also one of the good question they're asking nowadays. So you have to mention like how you guys are mentioning, like low maintenance cost, it will happen if you find a defect, and if your manual execution time is taking around 3 hours of time, but using your automation you are doing around 40 minutes or 45 minutes, then obviously it is a low cost, right? That means with the automation we are saving our times, right? And also through automation if you find a defect which manual testers are not able to find out, so then that is also one of the, like, you can mention that through automation you have raised the defect, this many defects which is not caught by the manual testers. And the execution time is the main factors. They are taking manually like 1 hour time, but we are doing only within half an hour. or within 15 to 20 minutes. So that much time saving uh, is happening in our project. Okay, so in this way obviously you can save your maintenance cost when compared to manual testing. So that is also you can explain to the interviewer. Now next question is, how do you implement retry logic in your framework? So sometimes your test cases are failed, right? So sometimes it is a network issue or sometimes it is a XPath issue. So if it is a network issue, we can implement retry logic, right? So what we'll do using that retry logic, uh, we'll execute this specific failure test cases only the failed test cases you can retry. So there is a retry code is available in automation. That's piece of code you can add it in your framework, and that particular code it will automatically execute at the time of failure. If you are executing, suppose 30 test cases you have executed, out of 30 there are 25 test cases are passed, only 5 are failed. So what this particular retry code will do, only it will execute those 5 failed test cases and after that it will give the result. Okay, so that is that the piece of code you'll get it from the internet, so you can try it. Okay, next question is, what is tail element exception and how do you handle it? So suppose you are trying to click on one of the web element, but that particular web element itself is not available in the DOM, then that time your test case will fail and it will give this kind of exception. Okay, so it will happen when you will refresh the page, uh, or if there is an update, then that time this kind of exception occurs. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to like wait, or you have to use explicit wait, and inside explicit waits will get presence of element or element visible methods. So once it will be available in the DOM, or once it is visible in the DOM, then it will click. So if you follow this kind of approach, then you can automatically avoid this kind of exception. Okay, so that is the meaning of stale element exception. Now second is, how do you handle flaky tests caused by timing issue? That is the same answer. You have to use explicit waits. Uh, don't use any hard-coded delays. Suppose if you are using thread.sleep, don't do that. It's better to use explicit wait. Once it is available, that web element is available, then that time only it will click. Okay, and if you are giving thread.sleep of 5 seconds, if within 2 seconds if it is visible, it will still not click. It will wait up to 5 seconds because as you have hard coded the value. So that's why better not to use thread.sleep, better to use explicit wait. In this way we can handle flaky tests also. Next question is, how do you handle hidden elements? So handle the hidden elements, that is the only one approach, that is the JavaScript executor. Using JavaScript executor method you can handle the hidden elements. The piece of code you'll get it from Google. Okay, this is everywhere you'll get it. So this is the only one option. Next question is, what is shadow DOM element? Yeah, some of the elements are inside a tree structure, so you'll not be able to directly click. So we have to find out the parent web element, then inside a parent you have to go to that child tree element. So that is the meaning of shadow DOM element. Can you please explain test ng annotations? That means before class, before, after test, before test. So these are the annotations which we are using in our framework, right? Before class, after class, before test, after test. Those are the annotations we are using. So that annotation you have to explain. Okay. Next question is, what is headless browser execution? So suppose if you are executing the test cases through CI/CD pipeline, so that time what will happen? You will not be able to view the your execution in your browser. They will use your browser, but they'll not be. We will not be able to view those executions. Okay, that is the meaning of headless browser. Difference between logging and reporting. So what is the difference? Suppose you have raised one defect, and after that developer is trying to find out the root cause. So for that, they what they will do, they'll check the timings, they'll check the logs. From that particular logs they will try to debug the application once again, and they'll try to find out which piece of code was not working, and due to that we have raised a defect. So that is the meaning of logging. Okay, that means they're investigating using different with debug info, different log info. They're trying to find out the root cause. Okay, that is the meaning of logging. But reporting means your execution has been completed. Now stakeholder wants the detailed report. So for that you are submitting the sending the report with the past result, field result, how many defects you have found, how many test cases are pending to execute, means a detailed summary report you are sending. That is the meaning of reporting. Okay, so that is the difference. And logging means they are checking the failures, they are trying to find out the root cause by debugging the code. That is the meaning of logging. But reporting means direct reporting, means it's kind of a summary report you are sending to the stakeholder. That is the meaning of reporting. Okay, yeah, so that is all from my side today. So I hope it will be helpful for everyone. Thank you.